Joining me right now is New York Congressman and Vice Chairman of the Problem Solvers Caucus, Tom Suozzi. Also with me is New York Congressman Tom Reed. Good to see you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Hey, good morning, Maria.
So you were both at that meeting on tax reform with the president. Congressman Suozzi, let's kick it off with you. What did you make of that meeting? Tell us what came out of it.
You know, the most important thing is there's a cultural change that people are trying to work across party lines to try and find common ground. It's not going to be easy. Doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything, but finding common ground is something we need to do to get things done. That's what the American people want, and that's what we in the Problem Solvers Caucus are trying to do, and that's what I think the president tried to start yesterday.
Yeah, I think you're right. The question is it going to come with him backtracking on some of his promises in terms of, for example, tax reform?
Well, the president has made it clear that he wants to try and reduce the corporate tax rate, and there's a lot of Democrats that support that idea, not because corporations need more money for dividends or for stock buybacks or for CEO bonuses, but because we need to create jobs here in the United States of America.
Yeah.
And he's made it very clear, and he said it many times during the course of the meeting, this is not about a tax break for the wealthy. He said he doesn't think it would pass, and quite frankly, he's right. He wouldn't get any bipartisan support if it was a tax cut for the wealthy. They're doing just fine right now.
Well, let's just, they're doing just fine. You're right. But Congressman Reed, let me get you in here because I'm looking at some federal income tax data from the Tax Foundation. And in 2014, the bottom 50% of taxpayers didn't pay much tax. In fact, in 2014, the top 50% of all taxpayers paid 97% of all individual income taxes. So how do you really say you're going to cut taxes when you're not cutting taxes on the highest earners since they pay all the tax?
Yeah, because what we're talking about, obviously, we're going to have a debate about what is wealthy. But being on the committee that's writing the tax code for the America for the last 7 years, we can do this. We can do this because the hardworking middle class that are the working part of that 50% that you referenced, those people are carrying a boatload of burdens on their back. And that's the relief that I think the president's tapping into. And being one of the early supporters of the president, I will tell you, I appreciate the disruption he represents here in Washington, D.C.
Well, what about the rate? I mean, we're talking with Mitch Rochelle this morning, who's an expert on taxes, frankly, and he points out that the top rate, that is the person who's considered rich, is $133,000, making $133,000. So you're gonna not cut taxes on that highest earner of $133,000. I mean, that's your fireman, that's your nurse, that's your makeup artist, that's your. I mean, do you think that's the rich?
No, absolutely not, Maria. I'm a proud Republican, and I will tell you that I don't believe in tax increases.
So then how are you accepting this?
How am I accepting it? Because the status quo of the broken American tax code is putting us behind further and further each and every day. We need to unleash America, and that's what tax reform is all about. It's going to create the jobs for generations ahead, and that's why I came to Washington, and I'll tell you, that's what we're going to continue to work forward to.
So you don't...
Listen, we haven't changed
Cutting a deal is not evil.
Yeah.
Getting 80% of the loaf, we should learn the lesson. That's victory, not defeat.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
what this president
is want to get the deal done. Go ahead,
We haven't changed the tax code in America since 1986. And the reality is the world is very different because of globalization and technology. And more than 50% of the people in the United States of America make less than $50,000 a year. Out of 105 million full-time jobs, 86 million make less than $75,000 a year. Whatever we do regarding tax reform,
and 50% do not pay any tax. And 50% don't pay any tax as a result of that.
Whatever we do in America is we need to create jobs where people can make a decent wage so they can live the American dream. They can make enough money. They'll work hard. They'll play by the rules. They make enough money so they can have a place to live. They can have health insurance. They can retire one day without being scared.
Yeah.
That's the key to the future of this country. We need to rebuild the middle in this country. Creating jobs is the way to do that. A tax reform in America has got to be about creating jobs for the people in the United States of America.
100% it has to be about creating jobs. But why do you equate helping the middle to creating jobs? I mean, if you want to see jobs, don't you have to make an attractive environment for those people who create jobs, which, of course, is the highest earners?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the corporate tax rate, quite frankly, when it comes to the creating jobs as well. And you're not going to get any tax reform in this country if this is about helping people that are already doing just fine. We're losing the middle class in America. Middle class in America is falling apart, and we need to rebuild it. And we're only going to get it done by getting Democrats and Republicans, like my colleague Tom Reed over there, us working together to try and find common ground to get things done. That's what the American people want.
How come it's been so hard? I mean, this is not exactly a new problem.
Because people are trying to block us from having normal conversations.
And I would tell you, when you get into the issues of tax reform, which we've been looking at for 7 years, you got stakeholders, you got status quo, you've got industry, you've got a hierarchy of people that are beholden to the existing tax code. And I will tell you, breaking that is difficult. But we got leadership in the Problem Solvers Caucus, and that's why I appreciate my colleague Tom Suozzi for standing with us.
Well, I think you make a really good point. Look, Tom, you're from New York, okay, Congressman Reed. Are you going to agree to eliminating the deductions on state income? Are you going to agree to eliminating the deduction on mortgages?
I'll tell you, those are two key components that are very important to me, and I've been a loud voice in the committee in writing the code to be a voice for that. But we got to have an open mind. We got to go forward in the reform with the
I've got to be 100% clear here. I've got to be 100% clear.
Never promise what you'll never do, Tom. Just don't do that on public TV, because we got to make the sausage of legislation, and that's what it's all about. And getting these deductions and the other interests, make sure to go forward.
Go ahead, Congressman. What are you saying, Suozzi?
I will not support an elimination of the state and local income tax deduction.
Will you support
it?
Will you be a yes?
So adamant about it. I thought you were going to come together. Now you're adamant that you're not going to support something.
Maria, I appreciate that. So, Tom, if it's in there, will you be a yes regardless of everything else?
Say it again?
Will you be a yes if it's in there regardless of everything else?
Well, I'm not going to negotiate with you right here, Tommy.
See, that's exactly what we have to do between member to member, relationship trustworthy. But never say what you never will do.
Go ahead, Tom Suozzi. Tom Suozzi, go ahead, get a word in.
You know, we've got the highest local property taxes in America in New York State, and we cannot afford to get rid of that deduction. Right now in New York State's a huge donor to the federal government, and this is one of the few things that protects our people in New York State is state and local income tax deductions.
So you're not willing to give on that then? I mean, you're saying you want to come across the aisle, but only when it includes raising taxes on the rich.
I am not going to give on that, no.
But I appreciate that, Tom. And this is where we have to negotiate in good faith. And Tom Suozzi is a good faith negotiator. And what we need to make sure that people respect is we're doing this for the American people, and we'll be able to work out our differences. And once we bring people together, Maria, that's going to unleash the American power of innovation entrepreneur that a reformed tax code will bring to the table.
Look, I totally get it. I mean, I think tax reform is necessary to move the needle on economic growth. But if you're not willing to actually cut taxes, and you're not going to cut taxes for the bulk of people who actually pay most of the taxes, I don't see how it moves the needle. I mean, the whole point here is jobs. The whole point is economic growth. I don't know how it moves the needle.
Maria, I'll offer you an idea. We're also decoupling the individual and business activity tax. So you got a lot of America based on a pass-through status. That reducing that rate also is huge. And as Tom Suozzi just talked about, reducing the corporate rate, that's the heart of American manufacturing. That's the heart of American innovation. You reduce the tax burden on those entities, you got an opportunity to unleash capital like you've never seen before.
Especially those pass-throughs, right? I mean, we're talking about perhaps a 15%. Is that what you would want, 15% on the pass-throughs, Tom Suozzi?
You know, I'm not going to support a 15% rate, but the bottom line is, in America, let's figure out how we can work together to create jobs for people that are not making it in this country. The reason the president resonated...
That's a very nice thing to say, Tom Suozzi, but the fact is you just were adamant on 2 points. You're not going to support the elimination of an important deduction, and you're not going to support a 15% corporate tax rate, but you want to come together.
That's right. And that's what negotiations are about. And that's what we're trying to do, is to work together to try and figure out solutions that will address the very real problems that exist in this country. The president resonated with people during his campaign because he spoke to people that have been left behind by globalization and by technology who are not making a decent wage.
We know. We just want to know where you stand on things so that we could actually see some
bipartisan
support. But you keep saying, I'm not going to support that.